just put them in the same pattern. Like you need to know what ore is used for extraction of iron, what is the name of the process, what operators or furnace is used, what are the raw materials, reactions, the diagram of the furnace, outline diagram and labeling of that, and any other important points about the extraction. So all these extractions that we have in the syllabus, इनके लिए आपको you just have to remember all these things, right? तो मैं लिखता हूँ first, start करता हूँ. I'm trying to look for a marker. I've got here. जो लिखते हैं सही. So let's start first with ore. The ore for the extraction of iron is hematite. Which is Fe2O3. And in fact, in many cases like iron, for instance, we have multiple ores that we can use. So hematite is the major ore that is used for extraction of iron. So I'll put it as number 1. And at number 2, we have magnetite. And magnetite is like Fe3O4. And just remember, okay, you people would always write hematite as an ore of iron. And if the question says that other than hematite, suggest an alternate ore, तो फिर आप उसको magnetite लिखोगे, ठीक है? Not otherwise. I repeat, if the question is only 1 mark and it says name or give formula of iron ore, we write hematite. Magnetite only when examiner says write ores of iron or other than hematite. उसकी reason ये है, about 70% of iron is obtained from hematite, as like hematite is naturally abundant ore of iron. So we use that as a major source of iron, so we should write that as a priority ore. Magnetite is an alternate. In some countries we have more magnetite and less hematite. Pakistan mein even we have a huge reservoir of hematite towards Miawali, Kalabagh side. If you go on those hills, they're not hills by the way, with barren rock kind of stuff, so you could actually see brown stone scattered around on the mountains. That's like entirely iron ore, so it's that much abundant there. Uske baad, the next thing is the raw material. Ji. Raw material is something that you need to make something in industry. So if you wish to make iron, you must have these ingredients, as to say raw material are the things that you need to carry out the process. So we need this hematite. I'll write it again here. Beside that we need limestone. नहीं iron ore नहीं, इधर hematite ही लिखना है. Iron ore तो ये दोनों है ना. Limestone. We need carbon or coke and air. We don't put sulfur in this stage. Sulfur is used later. आवाज लैग करी बेटा, कोई नेट का हो सकता है इशू हो, लेकिन ये रिकॉर्डिंग हो रही है. आई एम श्योर मैं बाद में शेयर कर दूंगा. आज काफी लोग ऑनलाइन बैठे हैं, या हो सकता है आपके एंड पे मसला, यू कैन ज्वाइन इन अगेन perhaps. So these are the raw materials that we need for the extraction of iron, and then there is this operators or furnace. So the furnace that we use for the extraction of iron is called blast furnace. All these names and things are like in your syllabus. They ask you what furnace is used for extraction of iron. It's blast furnace. Different furnaces have different names for metals extraction. And the process for extraction of iron is called reduction. Reduction. All right, अरीबा बेटा आप एक दफा लॉग आउट करें, फिर लॉग इन करें दोबारा. Okay, so the process is called reduction, by which it is obtained. अब इसके बाद we have the diagram of the blast furnace, an outline diagram. I'll draw it. it doesn't come for sketching or drawing for last few years, but it might come for labeling. ठीक है, आ जाएगी आपको parts उसके idea होना चाहिए कि what do we put where. Then we have the reactions of the blast furnace and then some important points otherwise. ठीक है, तो ये सारे आप मेरे साथ लिख लें. अच्छा, अब दूसरा इसके बाद डायग्राम आप ड्रॉ कर लो ब्लास्ट फर्नेस की. सो इट्स लाइक अ ह्यूज स्ट्रक्चर बाय द वे. बोर्ड पे तो हम इतना ही बनाएंगे, बट इट्स अदरवाइज अबाउट 2 or 3 story tall structure. लाइक इस हाइट पे जितना हम खड़े हैं अभी, इतनी हाइट की, एंड अबाउट ट्वाइस द साइज ऑफ द विड्थ ऑफ द रूम. पूरा ब्लॉक आप समझ लो, that big structure, and it actually processes the here it processes this. एक सेकंड मेरा, अभी अगर ये आवाज का मसला आ रहा है तो एक दफा मैं फिर चेक करूँ, लेकिन नेट का मसला होगा, अब उसमें मैं क्या इशू सॉल्व कर सकता हूँ. चलो, अब फिर रिकॉर्डिंग वीडियो मैं शेयर करूंगा, इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ ऑनलाइन मत पढ़ो, फेस फेस आओ. इंटरनेट का कनेक्शन है, अब उसकी स्पीड का तो कुछ नहीं किया जा सकता, या कोई बैक एंड पे अगर कोई मसला हो. Okay, so this blast furnace is a huge structure. And in the middle we have these wires. So we put in this raw material from the top. The entire raw material is put into here. The waste gases would escape this part. And these are the blowers and wires which blow in hot air. And then we have the molten iron. This molten iron is down here. And the slag floats at the top. Wires, basically, these are like big, large fans which blow in hot air into the furnace, because the furnace needs air into it. That thing is slag. What is more important is actually, other than this labeling of this furnace, you should know the fact that the temperature of the furnace is little lower in the top and lower side even. Like 400 degrees Celsius and about 800 or 1000 here, but it's much higher in the middle, around 1700 degrees Celsius. So this sort of weird temperature range of this furnace is something that you need to remember. Very less at the top, highest in the middle, and little lesser on the lower side even. Why is it highest in the middle? ये भी मैं आपको बताता हूँ थोड़ी देर बाद. So this is the diagram for the blast furnace. And then we have the reactions of the blast furnace. All right. So in the reactions of blast furnace, we try and write them in this sequence. This limestone that we have put into it, it's like calcium carbonate, CaCO3. Carbon is this coke, and hematite is this Fe2O3. So what happens here is that when you put in all these raw material, they sort of sprinkle down as powder. After the raw material mixture, it's like sprinkling down as a powder into the furnace, and the temperature of the furnace is already high. The reactions which start here are, the first one is that this limestone decomposes to make calcium oxide and CO2. Calcium carbonate, calcium oxide, CO2 gas. You need to know the state symbols also. Also, this carbon, which is coke, reacts with oxygen. That also makes carbon monoxide. Solid and gas. All right. मुझे लग रहा है जो अरीबा उसका नेट का तो नहीं मसला सॉल्व हुआ. I'll share the recording later. So carbon monoxide is formed, and this carbon monoxide then reacts with this hematite ore, that is Fe2O3. And that turns it into iron plus carbon dioxide. And then when you balance this equation, iron turns into liquid because the temperature is high, and iron melts around 15 to 1700 degrees Celsius के बीच में it melts and it's like liquid. इसको balance करना है ना. So you guys balance it and I'll write another equation. Okay, so if you have some space here with the process and all, तो अगर आप ये word add कर लें, the impurity, like with the ore, the impurity that comes with the ore is sand, because you get it from the mines and rocks, you know. So with the ore, sand would always come. So the impurity in the ore is the sand, which is silicon dioxide, SiO2. So sand is the impurity. This calcium oxide, it reacts with the silicon dioxide, and that makes calcium silicate, SiCSiO3. This is called slag. Okay, so anyone balance this third equation? बताओ. इधर भी two? I don't think so. इधर 3 and 1 4 है ना. अगर उधर 2 करोगे ठीक है. इधर अभी लगाना नहीं. ये लो 2 और 2. अभी देखो आयरन बैलेंस है. इसको बैलेंस कर. अब बताओ ऑक्सीजन बैलेंस है. 3 and 2 5 and 2 4. अब बैलेंस करो दोबारा. ये तो मैं कह रहा हूँ नहीं ये भी. जी जी ये मैंने आप लोगों को दी ये पहले बैलेंस करने के लिए. नहीं ये वो वाली नहीं, ये तो बैलेंस आराम से होती है. अब अगर 2 से नहीं हुई तो 3 पे जाओ ना. 3 लगाया, 3. Oxygen is balanced, 3 and 3 6. 3 2s are 6. Iron is 2, so we'll make it 2 here. जब 2 नहीं करेगा काम तो फिर 3 पे जाएंगे. Now most of the equation balanced by 2 or 3. बहुत ही rare है कोई 4 पे जाती. Okay, now this is your balanced equation, and the CaSiO3 is the slag. Now these are all the reactions of the blast furnace, right? So at time for 3 marks, 4 marks at time in exam, structured paper, you're asked to write all the equations of the blast furnace. अब इसमें इधर हो क्या रहा है, I'll explain that in detail. फिर थोड़े से और important points मैं इसके साथ लिख देता हूँ, right? See the thing is, अब आप लोग बोर्ड पे देखें बेटा, I'm not going to write much, इसको समझ लें, because otherwise you'll just cram all this, फिर उसका फायदा नहीं है. See, this is the ore which has iron in it, and you want to get rid of this oxygen naturally, right? इसको हम हटा देंगे तो we'll get iron. But the problem is that the ores are obtained from the rocks and mines and all the hill areas, so naturally the sand would always come with it. So they bring these large stones into the factory, they crush them into powder form, and then they mix them with the raw material. The ore, iron ore hematite, beside that we put this limestone, coke and air. So the thing is that you're asked all these questions. So if somebody says, what is the use of hematite here? That contains the iron, right? You need to have it. Then what's the use of limestone, right? हर एक part का you need to understand that. So the use of limestone is that this limestone decomposes to make calcium oxide, and that calcium oxide then traps this impurity which is coming with the ore. ठीक है ना? देखो calcium carbonate ने बनाया calcium oxide, and that reacted with silicon dioxide, and that makes the slag. Slag floats on the top. The slag is this calcium silicate. So if somebody says, what is the role of calcium carbonate? It helps to remove the impurity from the ore. And we can see that in the equation also. So इसके साथ आप लिख लो use of slag or role of calcium carbonate, role of CaCO3. It forms calcium oxide, which helps to remove the sand or impurity. And then if you're asked, what is the role of carbon here? So calcium carbonate makes calcium oxide, and that actually helps to remove the impurity that we could see in that equation CaO plus SiO2. Sometime examiner says show an equation which includes the separation of impurity. तो फिर आप ये वाली equation लिखोगे slag की formation वाले, silicon dioxide impurity है, तो उसकी separation की equation आप लिख दोगे. And then if you're asked what is the use of coke here, carbon. So the thing is कि carbon actually forms carbon monoxide. ठीक है, बोर्ड पे देखें. Carbon reacts with oxygen. Oxygen that you send in air, that sort of reacts with oxygen, carbon. That makes carbon monoxide. अब carbon monoxide actually reacts with the hematite ore. जो आपने ore डाली थी बीच में hematite, it is reacting with the carbon monoxide, and this is what is giving us iron. So carbon makes carbon monoxide, which give us the metal finally. Could you people try and tell me what would you call this reaction? Reduction or oxidation? We have studied that. Is this reduction? It is reduction. क्योंकि सारे कह रहे हैं. Yes. Iron oxide is losing oxygen, right? So we're left with iron. Loss of oxygen is reduction. Yeah. The thing is that this reaction is called reduction. All right. In the beginning, I wrote process involved. This is the process. So extraction of iron happens by reduction. And if examiner says, What is the major equation of blast furnace reaction? I mean, among these four reactions, which equation is the most important? Reduction one, because this makes iron. We are not concerned with slag and anything. All right, we are concerned with the equation that gave us iron. So that's why we call this reaction reduction also. The entire process is named as reduction. So reduction. So what is the role of carbon monoxide here? हमने पढ़ लिया redox. Reducing agent है, oxidizing agent है, क्या है? Carbon monoxide. शाबाश बताओ. Carbon monoxide is reducing agent. देखो, this compound is reduced. ये reduce हुआ है ना? इसको reduce किसने किया? इसने किया. तो ये reducing agent. So carbon monoxide, which comes from carbon, so coke is acting as reducing agent. So blast furnace में the reducing agent is carbon/carbon monoxide. Both of these you can write. ठीक है, दोनों लिख सकते हैं आप. But technically, as per this equation, carbon monoxide is the reducing agent. अच्छा, अब वो मैंने उधर लिख दिया, but मैं उसको दोबारा लिख देता हूँ. Role of carbon or carbon monoxide, they act as a reducing agent. The thing is that iron floats, iron is molten and its density is high. Once iron melts, it's formed as liquid, it falls down at the base of the furnace and it's sort of large tank filled with molten iron. Or uski surface पे the slag floats. That's even better thing, because see, इसमें iron liquid and the slag is solid, right? So what you have, बाकी सब चीजें gas. So carbon dioxide and all the waste gases escape here. तो खुद ही ऊपर चली जाती. So slag is lighter, its density is less, so it floats on the top. That otherwise contain impurity in it. So what we do is like they tap off the slag from the top. Last Friday की क्लास में मैंने आप लोगों को slag sludge की terms बताई थी, ठीक है? I shared the recording, उसको you guys need to watch it again if you have not attended that class. मैंने बताया था कि slag is something which floats on the surface, a solid suspension which floats on the surface. We call it slag. और जो नीचे settle हो जाए solid, we call it, जो लोग online present, sludge. Right? जो नीचे बैठ जाए sludge. तो इसमें slag बनता है, sludge नहीं बनता. एक और भी चीज होती है, slush, जो आप लोगों का फेवरेट है. So the slush is solid particles suspended in the liquid. So we don't have slush here, we have slag, sludge typically. So the role of slag is also asked. I mean, you tap off this impurity or waste, but they don't throw it out. The slag, calcium silicate, it all goes for making of cement and glass. Okay? The cement is basically calcium silicate and sand and other things, calcium carbonate mixture. So use of calcium carbonate, this slag, or role of slag lithovishet. So role of slag is that it is used to make cement. Is used to make cement and glass. Slag is used to make cement and glass. Uses का handout मैंने आपसे कहा था, I'll give you at the end, but then I said कि what is more important that when you study a use of a substance, you need to try and memorize it in that place. फिर वो आपको सही याद हो जाता है, and that uses sheet would simply reinforce it. ठीक है? तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने uses की sheet और colors में सब याद कर लेंगे उस टेबल में से, इधर फिर भूल जाता है. वो क्या है? वो कुछ भी नहीं है. जितने भी कलर्स आपके सिलेबस में है ना डिफरेंट किस्म के, I'll put them in a table. वैसे तो technically you guys should do it yourself. नहीं फिर याद भी नहीं होगा. जो स्टूडेंट्स खुद करते हैं ना ये काम, ऑर्गेनिक अपने रिवीजन नोट्स बनाते हैं खुद से, तो they remember those things properly because you learn a color which is in syllabus and observation, you put it in that table. उसका फॉर्मूला लिखो कि कौन सी चीज उसका कलर क्या है. There'll be hardly 15, 10, 15 colors total. फिर हमजा तुम्हारी बात सुनो, जोक्स नहीं क्रैक करो। मैंने देख लिया अच्छे कपड़े पहन के आए हुए, वॉच भी पहनी हुई है। अभी रिकॉर्डिंग नहीं हो रही थी तो पूरा तुम्हारा गेटअप एक्सप्लेन कर देता मैं। दूसरा ये है कि यूसेस भी इसी तरह से आपको याद करने कोई at least 8 to 10 of different things which are in your syllabus. So if you memorize it there and then and put that in the table yourself, you know okay, where does it link again, उसको याद करना आसान हो जाता है फिर। अच्छा, अब one very important thing I said कि the temperature of the furnace, and this is asked by the way, it's very strange thing, the temperature of the furnace is lower at the top, little less lower on the lower side, or highest in the middle. So they typically ask you why the temperature of the blast furnace is highest in the middle. ठीक है, अब उसके लिए you need to remember this reaction that I've written here, carbon plus oxygen that makes carbon monoxide, it is highly exothermic. इसके साथ आप लिख लो highly exothermic reaction. This reaction is highly exothermic reaction. What is an exothermic reaction? The one which gives heat out, right? And increases the temperature of the surrounding. The thing is, this raw material is a powder, mixed powder of hematite, limestone, coke. Air to niche se aa rahi hai. So these powder, when they sprinkle down, that flakes flying down in the furnace, falling down. So by the time they reach the middle, that's when this carbon reacts with oxygen coming in, right? So this is the area, like almost the middle of the furnace, where this reaction happens. And because it's highly exothermic reaction, it keeps the temperature of that area too high compared to the top and lower side. बाहर से fans बड़े-बड़े blower लगे होते हैं. They like filter off the dust and moisture, and they send in the air because the air में oxygen and nitrogen is not reactive. Ion reaction take place over here. Yes. It happens here again in the same area. It's solid, yes. What is iron melts around 1500 plus minus 1700. 1700. It becomes liquid. So it was solid as ore at the top. It reacts and turns into iron here. That's where the temperature is very high. It melts and it falls at a lower temperature again down. The raw material the thing is that this raw material is actually called feeder. The feeder actually decides that how much powder it has to sprinkle every now and then. It simply doesn't rain down. Okay? They know okay, how the reaction is going. Is it going fast or slow? They stop the supply of the raw material and then they increase or decrease it accordingly. All of it's very atomized process. ये तो हम slice करके एक side से दिखा देते हैं ना. This is how blast furnace is. But the entire thing is controlled by the computer and softwares. So there are sensors. They record the temperature of every place, and the temperature indicate is the reactions going fine or do they have to change the speed. So people don't do it. I mean, robots will control the input of the raw material and everything. अब तो blast furnace is बड़ी advanced form की. अच्छा, अब जो मैंने बात बताई थी, the temperature of the furnace is highest in the middle because this reaction happens in the middle. तो इसको आप इसके साथ लिख लो. Temperature of the furnace is highest in the middle as है ऊपर लिख दूं. ऊपर लिख देता हूँ. चलो मैं पढ़ देता हूँ यहाँ तक. Temperature of the furnace is highest in the middle. So blast furnace यार जिधर भी जगह उधर लिख लो ना ब्लास्ट फर्नेस के नीचे. तो वो तो मैंने उसको हेडिंग दी थी कि ये ब्लास्ट फर्नेस. इन पॉइंट्स के नीचे रोल ऑफ स्लैग के नीचे लिखे ना आप. सो टेम्परेचर ऑफ द फर्नेस इज हाईएस्ट इन द मिडल as carbon monoxide is formed in this region. Is formed in this area or in this region, which releases large amount of heat. नहीं, I mean formation of which is highly exothermic अगर आपने वो लिखना है. And formation of carbon monoxide is like an extremely exothermic process that keeps the temperature of the furnace highest in the middle side or middle area. This is about all the details and technicalities of the blast furnace जो आपने याद रखनी. अब इसमें कोई क्वेश्चन है तो आप लोग पूछो, शाबाश. पूछोगे तो नहीं पता मुझे. The moment you realize the class is about to get over, the question bank stops. चले, अभी अरीबा वगैरह को I'm not sure कि बाद में आवाज आ रही थी कि नहीं, लेकिन I'll share the recording when I'm free with all the classes. ये सामना ने भी टेक्स्ट से किया था. बाकी असल में बच्चे इनपुट देते नहीं है ना, सबका आइडिया नहीं होता, वरना मैं बता रहा हूँ.